Hello, I'm Lisa Mitchell, and I am your host today on Leadership Human Style. So, as a leader, when you get overwhelmed, what do you notice that you tend to do more of with your team? I would wager that you take on more of their monkeys. So, monkeys are what I call other people's responsibilities or job description items. I see this a lot in the leaders that I work with. And in fact, I was inspired to record this episode today because of two beautiful clients that I met with this morning and are both struggling with the same kind of thing. Some interesting behaviors they get into when they get into overwhelm. So, here's the first example. Lovely senior director who runs an accounting department essentially and has two directors reporting to her. And she used to do their job. So she knows what they have to do. And it is very easy for her to kind of fall into telling them how they need to fix something when they're not sure of something. At any rate, she's been working on this. She's aware of it. And her main goal is about how do I empower people, right? How do I empower people to own their monkeys and not take them on myself? The thing is, she keeps kind of falling into old patterns, especially when she gets into overwhelm. And right now, it's a busy time. Probably is in your world too, but I see this everywhere. People, just their schedules are overloaded and the demands are huge. There's more projects. We've got to do more with less, literally, because there's fears of a recession and so on as I record this in May 2025. So at any rate, this beautiful leader, I'm going to call her, what comes to mind? Gertrude, just because it's a fun name. And she's fun. So this morning she was feeling particularly overwhelmed and there was too much that she needed to do. And ironically, what she did was instead of focusing on her to-dos was she started poking around and digging into how the team was doing in terms of their productivity. And she noticed that there was one analyst that had not been particularly productive that morning, had really not done anything, I guess, for a couple of hours. And so she was quite infuriated by this. She ended up direct messaging this individual, who doesn't report to her, by the way, saying, "What have you been doing? And you haven't produced anything today." And this person gave her some kind of response, I'm not sure. And so then my client went back to the director to whom this person actually does report and says, "Hey, I did this. And what are you doing about it? Because, I needed to send a signal. I mean, I want to empower you and I'm not about micromanaging, but I really needed to today." So just stepping back from that for a second, you can see that there's a lot of yeah, but. So I'm not a micromanager and I don't want to be seen as one. And yet here I am micromanaging and going direct. So you can imagine the potential impact that this analyst and this more junior director would be feeling. I mean, wow. We're not trusted. And yes, it did prod some results into happening short term this morning. Long term, though, I think we have to wonder, how have we paved the way for ongoing sustainment of that same kind of productivity and engagement? So at any rate, you can imagine that she landed in a place where she thought, oh my gosh, yes, I am saying one thing and behaving in another way. And it was simply because in her state of overwhelm, she felt the need to control more. And it is really interesting when it comes to our human brains. We often, when we feel out of control and how are we possibly going to accomplish our own to-do list, we start looking other places and getting involved where we don't need to be. So that's one example. I'm just going to park that one over here because I've got a couple of other to share with you. The second client that I met this morning, different scenarios clearly, but there's sort of some interesting commonalities. So this individual is very senior and runs a very large division for a large company. And recently she had a bit of a breakthrough where she realized that when she is in overwhelm, okay, there's the common theme. It's usually what happens to her is it triggers this fear, right? This fear that she's going to let things fall through the cracks or that her team will, and she's going to get found out as incompetent or it's somehow going to damage her reputation. So even though she's very senior and has several layers of leaders below her, see, this isn't just a frontline leader problem. she would tend to sort of just, try to do things for people. It also, you partner that fear of things falling through the cracks with truly wanting to help people. She's very much a servant leader. And unfortunately, those things collided and caused her to step in and take over and to tell people what to do, but more often than not, actually do it. So this is a very senior C-suite person doing stuff that needs to be done more at a VP or director level. And what she's realized is that when she's in overwhelm, and she tends to do this, she's actually, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. She's making things worse. She's escalating the whole overwhelmed situation versus de-escalating it, versus working with people to say, I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed. Maybe you are too. Let's talk through together how we're going to move through this, right? And here's what I'm looking for from you. We need to get X done. What are your ideas on how to do that versus, here, just give it to me and I'll just do it because it seems faster at the moment. So here you have two people, overwhelm as the commonality. And there's this theme of needing to remember the reason we want to empower people is so that long term they own their monkeys and they're going to take care of them and they're learning and they're resourceful and they're growing. And it also creates in us a bit of a release, like a letting go, like, oh my God. The second client, she actually said, I feel more at peace. Just, recently there was this whole email chain going back and forth because she's been working on this for a while. So she could see the whole team embroiled in this email string for 2 days. And she was dying to jump in. And it took every ounce of strength for her not to do so. And you know what? She succeeded. So I'm so proud of her and thrilled for her because she was able to kind of hold back. And what she said was, I trusted my team. I trusted them to figure out. And you know what? They did. Took a little longer than I would have liked, but I think it's going to get better next time. And I would guess that she's right. So here's my third example, my third story, and it's me. And I want to just, give the caveat that I have been in my career, my very long career in corporate and now as an entrepreneur, I have been the queen of delegation many times. Doing it very artfully, delegating with support, all the right things, empowering people. And I have also been the micromanager for sure, especially when I get overwhelmed. So I have good awareness about this, but it's interesting when context and group dynamics change. So you've heard me talk about Patrick before, my son. He's actually been a guest on the show. And he is turning 19 this week. But anyways, crazy. He started university back in the fall. And going into second year, he's going to be living off campus. Stay with me. The story will make sense in a second. And in the city where he goes to school, you have to sign off on a lease for off-campus housing, like somebody's, you're renting, from May 1st all the way till April 30th the following year. So even though he's not going to be going to school there until September, he's going to be living at home for the summer for his job. We've got to pay rent. Okay. So anyways, he's moving in with 3 other friends. And this is a bit of a different scenario because this is a household move. He's just not moving into his own room, where he needs the sheets and his clothes and all that kind of stuff like residence. They're actually outfitting a whole house, right? Because there's a common living room area and a common kitchen that would have nothing in it. So I was asking him, where are you guys at in terms of planning that stuff? And what do you think you need to do, being the great leader / mom that I think I am. And he's like, we'll get to it. And this is back sort of in the early spring. And yet I didn't see any getting with it. So me being the organizing Lisa that I am at times and feeling, I guess the fierce mama bear came into play a little bit too. I was like, geez, like, where's this going? I didn't want them to move in and have nothing. And I'm trying to come from a place of helping, right? Like that other client I mentioned, she's a real servant leader. Well, this is what, my intention was. We have to be careful, though, around intention when it doesn't line up with our impact. So wait for it. So I decide to do a beautiful shared Google spreadsheet and to share it with the other parents and the other kids young adults that are going to be living with my son in this house, saying, hey, I chat GPT'd not Googled, but I chat GPT'd, a list of what are some things that you want to be thinking about, items that you want to have to stock a new student house, right? Where there's the common areas to consider. So I'd made my spreadsheet and I'd put like who was going to contribute. We contributed. We bought a TV, put that on. I've got an extra kettle. I've got some tea towels, all this junk. So I put in where Patrick, i.e. me, are going to contribute these things. And then I asked people, I said, it might be a good idea if you go in and put your name against things that you might already have. The whole idea being to save money and just make it easier. Anyways, Patrick and his girlfriend, who's going to be living there in a separate room, by the way, they both, thanked me and said, great. And they went in and they did some stuff in the spreadsheet. And then I got nothing from the other two kids and nothing from the parents at all. And I was starting to think, geez, we're coming up on May 1st in this big move. And are we going to have a whole lot of nothing? So what I realized, though, finally, I guess I had expressed my dismay to Patrick. He mentioned it to the other two. And next thing you know, I get these kind of, responses that signaled to me that my help wasn't really welcome or wanted. And these are two individuals who I think have operated probably way more independently than my own kid for whatever reason. And here I am trampling all over their efforts to adult on their own and in their own way and in their own time. So I realized this was really great learning for me. I need to release this. Now, I'll tell you that there's one thing. So the first weekend after that we moved them in and we cleaned and did all the stuff, Patrick had stayed over. He came back and he said, Mom, I made breakfast for everybody, which is so sweet, by the way, but we didn't have a toaster. So I had to put the toast on a cookie sheet and put it in the oven. Kudos to him. He figured that out. Okay, great. But I immediately put toaster down on the grocery shopping list because I thought, well, I know I've seen a $10 toaster at Walmart. I can just zip out and get that. And then as I was thinking about this whole thing, though, what good is it for me to go buy them a toaster? In the end, this is a perfect opportunity, just like my client was staying out of that email string, to stay out of it. If they want to keep cooking toast in an oven, great. If they want to pool their resources and spend their $2.50 a piece to buy a collective toaster for the house, great. It's actually not my problem. It's not my monkey now. Yes, I'm paying the rent for him. And that's where it ends. He gets to figure this out. He gets to advocate for himself. So I did say to Patrick, as a kind of, sum this up a little bit, is I did say to him a few days later after I'd done some reflecting on this, I said, look, this is hard for me to just hang back here. I don't want to take things over for you. And so I'm not going to. And I found myself doing that in this particular instance. That said, I'm still here to help you, and so is your dad. So if you need something, you need a little help with getting something for the house or sorting out a conflict with the roommates, just say something and we'll be there in a heartbeat, right? We'll help you think it through, help you with resources, whatever. And it's gonna be up to you to initiate it going forward. So let's check in regularly, see how it's going. Just know that. And he was like, Mom, that is perfect. So, I kind of get chills just sharing this with you. Mom, that is perfect. That's what he wants too. He wants the chance to figure this out. And for you listeners who are, leading teams, it's very complex getting work done through people. Your job is not to just take on everybody's monkeys or make assumptions about how they're managing their monkeys in the first place. It's really to facilitate conversations that help them figure out what they need to do and what's going well, what's not, and for you to offer help when they ask for it, or to say, I feel like you need some help. Do you? Not just, march right in, so to speak. So the moral of this story, okay? We've got overwhelm as the common theme with my two clients, and then even me feeling overwhelmed with sort of lack of response and, oh my God, there's so much to do to get these kids moved in, and they're young, they don't know, right? There's the overwhelm. So notice when you're in the mind swirl, notice the body cues. That really helps. Like for me, I get a little bit sweaty in the palms, a little bit of anxiety in that sort of upper tummy. For one of my clients, she gets all tense in her shoulders. Use that as a cue to sort of step back and go, oh, there I go. Okay. And ask yourself, knowing that you tend to slide into old behaviors that aren't helpful, ask yourself once you're aware of where you are, who do I want to be as a leader? And how do I want to be as a leader? And I can pretty much guarantee you don't want to be the micromanager. You don't want to be perceived that way. And you don't want to be distrusted. You want to be the empowering leader. So we have to act like it. That's it. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate you being with me, and have a great rest of your day. Thank you for listening, my friends. If you found value in today's episode, please consider sharing it with a colleague or two. Perhaps even leave me a 5-star review so others can find the show. Wondering how we might partner together? Book a chat with me. The link is in the show notes. Until next time, keep leading human style.